welcome to the Real Estate Marketing Podcast. My name is Jerome Lewis. I'm your host for today. The Real Estate Marketing Podcast is a podcast where we talk marketing, tech, business, and leadership. We talk these things for real estate agents, real estate investors, and real estate entrepreneurs. The Real Estate Marketing Podcast is a podcast that has two purposes. Purpose number one, to educate and inform our audience of listeners. Purpose number two, Jenna, to spotlight you, your business, your service, or your product in a way that provides value to you, including market exposure and content creation. With that, we have a very special guest, Jenna Harris-Hernandez. She has been a top 1% real estate agent and the founding agent of Inc. 1000 investment firm in her 10 years in the real estate industry. She is a somewhat reluctant real estate coach and fell into coaching when a top 50 real estate company asked her to come coach their agents. After hundreds of coachings and creating systems for agents that help them become top 1% themselves, Jenna has decided to share her findings from these coachings within the industry. Ultimately, it's time for agents and business owners to stop owning a job and get their life back by learning how to own a business. Join her at the Real Estate Agent Flex to learn more. And you can find out more about that on Facebook by looking up Jenna Harris-Hernandez on Facebook or the Real Estate Agent Flex on Facebook. Jenna, I'm excited that you're here. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here.
You're welcome. So, Jenna, we went over your bio, and the thing that jumped out to me immediately was that you said it said a reluctant coach. So before we get into that, that's what I would like to talk about, because I've had like some of that myself. But before we get into that, I want you to take us on a journey. Tell us your story and how you got to where you got to today.
Okay. Yeah, no, I'm happy to do that. So if I were to tell you, there's two parts of the story, and I think it'll help you know why I'm passionate about this.
Okay.
I'm so passionate about helping people understand the mindset, skill set, and tool set that it takes to start owning a business and stop owning a job. And that goes directly back to my story. So on paper, my story looks something like came to Dallas, Fort Worth, started college, got my degree here, went straight into high ticket sales, did really awesome. But I was about 22, 23, went into real estate at 25, and that was a little over 10 years ago now. And had no clue what I was doing. I had no SOI. All the things that a lot of people start with, I did not have. No knowledge of real estate.
What's SOI? Tell us what SOI.
Yes, so I did not have a corporate job that I came out of or a marketing strategy. I knew nothing. I had never leased a property without a roommate. I was clueless. So in the first about 18 months, the big takeaway that I think I learned in that first 18 months was the difference between a mentor and a trainer. I had a mentor, which was there to catch me when I fell and give me wise advice, but I had no training and I struggled. I was not one of those people that took off like a lightning bolt. And I feel like a lot of coaches, like my first year, I sold 500 houses and, also got 8 hours of sleep a night. BS. That was not my story. I struggled, and I did not know how to own a business. I didn't even know how to own a job. Okay, which we're going to talk more about that later. But about the 2-year mark, I started to understand how to communicate. I took my previous high ticket sales and I brought it into real estate. And I finally started getting systems in place, which we'll talk about here too, that helped me just get in front of more people. And ultimately what led to my success the first go around within that 2 to 3 year mark was just working harder and being excellent at conversion and just working harder. So the two, though, that's a recipe for burnout. And within that first 2.5, 3 years, I really was like, I want to learn how to invest. How can I learn how to invest in real estate? Well, I'm going to work for investors and I'll figure it out. So I actually met a real estate investor. I became their founding agent. We took off in 2 years flat. We hit Inc. 1000. We were in 20 different states. I was working I was training acquisitions teams. It was crazy. So we took off like lightning. By then I'm top probably 0.5% in the entire country for GCI, number of deals closed, and learned this industry just backwards and forwards. I love investing. It's probably one of the best. It is one of the best investments in the world, and it's also the best exit strategy. Own a business, own real estate. It's an amazing exit strategy. So I took off, but I found out that my partners they did not align right with my level of integrity. When we had been together for about 2.5, 3 years, they had changed. Money had changed them, and I found out about it. And in 2 weeks, I left. And at this time, I had a 1-year-old kid, and I was the provider for the household. And I was like, holy crap, I have to start over again, because I'm the kind of person, I'm not taking clients with me. I'm not doing that shady stuff. And at this time, I had tons of staff members that I was paying their overhead. And I was like, okay, where do I go from here? So I started over, and I hit top 1% again in 2 years. This time I was more kind of in the residential. We had like a form of a residential model of a real estate model combined with an investment model, which we'll kind of talk about here later if y'all want to get into that. And it served me really well, but markets shift. And the market shifted real hard. And I was like, oh my gosh, I have to shift with this. I have to pivot, because what I am doing right now, like the investment deals that were out there, and everyone in the entire world, I'm in Dallas, Fort Worth, Texas, came to Dallas, Fort Worth, Texas to do real estate. The Chinese, the Russians, Japanese, like everybody was buying real estate here. And then all the locals, everybody came here. And what used to be easy to find, I couldn't find anymore. So long story short, at this point, I'm like totally burnt out. My kiddo is only a few years old. I've missed a lot of his growing up because I'm just working harder, not smarter. I am like, oh my gosh. And here I am, the market shifting again, and COVID's about to hit. I didn't know this at the time. And I've got to start not over. At this time, I have a high level of skill set. I'm awesome at sales and conversion. I have a team. I've built a business, but I didn't know how to remove myself from the business. And it was just crazy. So I'll kind of go back to that. On paper, this is the third business I built that's top 1%, right? Well, then I did it again and hit top 1% again within 2 years and build a fourth business. And this is like the model that I found shifts with any market, and I ain't ever changing. And it's a combination of working with investors and residential real estate agents. We have a beautiful ecosystem, and I'm happy to go into that. But all the lessons that I've learned along the way. So if I were to tell you that shiny bio, it sounds pretty good. In the last couple of years, I've done hundreds of real estate coachings, and it's revealed a lot to me. But behind the scenes of all of that success in the last, especially not the last 2 or 3 years, I've had to do a lot of work on my mindset. I had drive, I had skill set. I developed the skills that it took to be successful in real estate during those 7 years, but I still didn't know how to own a business, and I had not developed my mindset correctly. And so by the time I'm at that 7 years mark with a young kid who has health problems, I started developing a neurological disorder, and I couldn't not sleep anymore, and I couldn't work harder anymore. I was like, for my kid who I've missed a lot of his growing up, and for my own health and my mental stability, I have got to figure out how to work this as a business. And I've got to remove myself from a lot of the things that I was doing every day. So that's kind of the story that kind of brings me up to today. But ultimately, there's a shiny side and there's a really dark side of my story. And that dark side it was so behind the scenes. I was so owned by my business. All of my friendships were suffering. My mental state was suffering. I had terrible anxiety and depression. Missed a lot of my son growing up, and I had money in the bank, but I had no joy. I was severely depressed. And of course, my marriage suffered. And that's a two-way street, which you've worked through that, right? Hallelujah. But like, I like to get real, because a lot of coaches, they don't talk about that stuff. They just talk about the shiny stuff. And they talk about the glitz and glam and the closings and the cars and all this other crap. Well, you know what? Like, you only get to live once. And when I got diagnosed with my neurological disorder, they thought it was actually cancer first, a centimeter and a half away from my heart. And it totally changed my mindset. Thank God it wasn't cancer. But it totally changed my mindset. And I was like, I cannot wait anymore to figure out how to remove myself from this business and actually live my dadgum life instead of being owned by this business. I don't care about the money. I just hit this one. I don't care about the money. I care about people in my life, and I make an impact on other people. And that's it. And, you know, thankfully the money has continued to come, but I've been able to build systems and things that have been able to help support freedom of my time and my finances, which is what I'm all about.
Thank you for sharing that. I was having a conversation just yesterday, actually, with one of my clients, and he talked about similar to what you're talking about, like how all of the coaches and the people you see online, it's like, oh, I got into real estate and I hit the ground running. I brought 100 units on the first year, and it's like, a lot of people are like, I can't identify with that. I just want like 5 units or 2 units or something like that. I just want $1,000 a month or $2,000 a month. And it really made me start to think like, yeah, he's actually right. Like, not a lot of people want that entire thing. They just want like a small change here and there to, you know, and then maybe they'll start to think about that and become more ambitious. So you mentioned a lot of things, and I want to go deep on some of these things. So one of the things that I want to talk about is, you got a lot. I would like to talk about a lot of this, but since we mentioned, like, I want to hear you talk about earlier, you talk about a coach and a trainer. And then I also want to know where mentor fits into that, right? Because those are like 3 different labels, and I want to hear you talk about each of those.
Mm-hmm. So when I first started in real estate, I feel like things are best told in stories. I met the most amazing people, and they were my real estate mentors. But it was this, hey, keep a positive attitude. And they were my brokers at the time. It was a very small brokerage out west of Fort Worth, and great people. I love them, still in contact with them off and on to today. But there was not a framework to success at all. I didn't even know that I needed a like Supra key. At the time, I used these little black keys to like with numbers on them to get into houses. And somebody who's like way younger than me is gonna be like, that's old. Whatever. But so I didn't even know that I needed one on my first showings. I didn't know how to generate leads. Like, it was legit set up like a 1980s office where you did phone time. And if someone happened to call in, you got the lead, you know, which is okay. But there was no framework or step-by-step accountability towards success. But they told me lots of great things, and they did pour into me in terms of like mindset, and they were kind. And I feel like a mentor is there, kind of also a good mentor, I feel like, is there for almost like the 360 of your life. They're there when, you know, your mom gets cancer, which I can talk about that because that's happened to me in the last 10 years. They're there when you and your husband are not able to see eye to eye on something. They're there when you need business advice. They're there in a different way. It's like a 360 approach, and it's a catch you when you fall, right? And training is a system. This is a framework. Step by step, you are held accountable, and there's actually a track toward an end goal. With mentorship, it's almost this 360 approach of, okay, you want to talk about this today? Okay. It's almost like, I don't want to say glorified therapy, but it is that in a way. Experience. trainer, though, has a system. They know that it works, and you can and be led toward an end goal that is clear and it is concise. I think that for me was huge. So a lot of new agents and inexperienced agents, when you're out there looking for advice, find somebody who is willing to pay for it. Can I just say that? Like, well, I have paid so tens of thousands of dollars for coaching. And even if you take one thing away that pays you back for that investment, it is so worth it. And I'm talking to all the coaches out there, okay? Like, on all the agents, I'm talking about all the coaching programs. Find real training that takes you where you need to go and be willing to pay for it, because that's what I did. And that really started to change my life and my finances and my mindset. So training, and also a coach, I feel like too, they have the systems, they have the training, but I feel like I am more meant to be a coach. I dig really deep with people when I'm on a one-on-one with them. And not only do we dig deep, but I'm not always a trainer. I'm like, here's the system. They show you the way, they hold you accountable. A coach is like, I'm going to get in your face and sometimes tell you to get off your ass. Because, sorry, I don't know if there's cursing on this show.
You're fine.
I'm like, because that is love, in my opinion. That's really taking, like, digging deep and working through this stuff. Like, I've worked with people before, just last week, and as she was telling me stuff, I could see these patterns and these certain words that she kept using. When I said, when you were a child, and this is deep. I was like, did you always feel like you had to be responsible for every person and everything in your life? That's what a coach does. And because sometimes there are roadblocks that will always keep you stuck until you have someone say, there's your roadblock. You have to remove that first, because if your mindset's stuck in one place, you're never going to be able to be as successful as you could be until that roadblock is dug out. There's a flashlight on it, and you can work through that stuff and then get past it, get through it, and then start to layer on mastery. Does that make sense?
It does make sense. And I would like to hear from you, because you talked about, like, we're talking about mindset, and I want to go into that like a little bit later, but I want to go into one specific thing about mindset, right? So I want to hear from you, like, how you shifted the right mindset. Because one of the things that you said, like, one of the best things that I've ever done was I went out and I started hiring coaches, right? I want to know, like, how you shift, how you get in that proper mindset, because some people, like the majority of people, they don't understand. Like, I should go hire a coach, and that coach is going to help me achieve. And even if I get one specific thing, like what you're saying, it was worth the coaching. So can you help us understand, like, how to get in and understand that proper mindset? Like, take us on your journey. What led you to, hey, you know what? I would benefit from a coach, so let me go find a coach.
Mm-hmm. So I feel like when it first occurred to me was okay, let me back up. I believe that to be really successful, no matter who you are, no matter where you come from, and no matter where you're trying to go, you have to have self-awareness. You must have self-awareness. And there are some people that I've not been able to help very much, because they will refuse to look in the mirror and admit that there are gaps. And I will not accept those people into my coaching program. And the reason I know this is because I've had those gaps. Okay. And I had to look at myself in the mirror and become self-aware enough to be like, and I'll share something really personal with you. Is that cool? And like,
yes,
this is what I got. I am ADHD. I'm OCD. I suffer from anxiety and depression. I have since I was 9 years old. I got all the crap wrong with me. Okay. I'm just a normal person out there.
I'm ADHD too. So I appreciate you sharing that. That's one of the things that I really, really drive home, because a lot of people like to say that they have it, and it's not really true. Like, I have like medical records verify that I legitimately had like that.
I did.
So I
And I
appreciate
have
you
those
doing that.
stories for my poor mom. So God bless mom. Anyway, so self-awareness. Like I have, all of these things wrong with me, right? Air quote wrong. But really anything can be overcome. So
Mhm.
this self-awareness idea, I have perfectionism syndrome, which is really more of a mental state.
Mhm.
And that started when my anxiety and depression started because of a traumatic event in my childhood at 9 years old. This is literally how far back I had to go to fix this stuff. I was like, when did I start thinking this way about myself and thinking that I had no worth? And then how have I projected, trying to be perfect and live up to all these standards that I've set for myself onto other people? And so part of my journey to self-awareness was going a long way back and figuring out my big roadblock. But an example of that I'll share is I started noticing, and this might make me emotional, that when I would go watch my son in Taekwondo, that he would doubt himself. And he would look over his shoulder and see, I used to be a professional athlete. I don't look like it anymore, but I did. Okay. So and I've taken a little bit of martial arts, and my husband's a martial artist. And so I noticed that he would look over his shoulder at me during class, and he would be less confident, and he would screw up when I was there because I was coaching from the sidelines. So, get this shoulder down, whatever. And I was harming his self-confidence by projecting perfectionism onto him. I was trying to make him be perfect, and I was harming him and his level of self-confidence and his ability to focus and improve by projecting my own damn problems onto my kid. And I was like, I cannot believe that I am doing that. And I had to look myself in the mirror and say, Jenna, that's wrong. And where does this come from? And I had to work through that. And I had to go back and also realize I've held myself to impossible standards over the years, which is why I've been burnt out 10,000 times and probably likely developed a neurological disorder because of it, from constant fight or flight. So self-awareness is the key to success. Once you are aware, and that requires you to be humble, and it requires you to prioritize and value your success and being uncomfortable more than you value comfort and staying where you're at. Does that make sense? So that's
Yes, ma'am. It does. And I appreciate that you shared how, because I don't think we look at it that way, right? Like perfectionism and how it's harmful. So you mentioned like you're harming your child, and I think like this is a story that's going to stick with me because like now you're harming someone else when you do that, right? Like you're no longer like, I don't think people look at it as harming themselves, which they are, but when you start to harm someone else from it, like that really like sticks, especially someone that you love and care about. So like and I always tell people, look, you're thinking about being perfect and you don't want to get your message out there and you don't think you can help people, you're taken away from people because they miss out on your messaging. They miss out on your chance to help them because you're so worried about yourself, right? And that is like kind of a phantom loss, but you have like a direct harm that you was harming your child. So I appreciate you sharing that. And I think it will identify with some people that understand, like, listen, when you're trying to be perfect and you're thinking about perfection and all that stuff, you're harming people and you're taking away from them. So thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, absolutely. And to piggyback off your original question, which was how do you realize you need a coach? Admitting that you have gaps. And that means you have to be self-aware enough to know that you do have gaps. And I think part of that comes from just start. That's the lowest hanging fruit, is just start listening to people. And for the love of anything, whatever, for the love of all good, just, you don't always have to do it some reinventing of the wheel. Like just go learn from other people, listen to podcasts like this, find people that challenge you. If you are not listening to people or reading things or going to classes that challenge you, it's a pretty dang good sign that you are totally fine staying exactly where you're at forever or moving backwards. Like, you have to get uncomfortable and be willing to learn. And if you just get out there and start listening to somebody, before you turn on a podcast, maybe even say to yourself, okay, universe, I believe in God, but if you don't, universe, karma, whatever it is that you believe in, tell me what I'm supposed to learn from this today, and help me to be open-minded about the gaps in my mindset, skill set, tool set that I might need to find in this. And right there, you're admitting, hey, maybe there's one little thing that I can grab onto, pull myself up to the next level with this content that I'm consuming. I mean, that's a great place to start. Sorry, my chair is all squeaky.
Oh, good. So one of the things that you mentioned and that I see with a lot of people is like challenging, right? People, oh, but that person might not have my best interests at heart, or I've dealt with people in the past and they've given me bad information or wrong information. So how do you determine like what information you listen to, and how do you determine like what's healthy, like what's healthily challenging someone to grow and become a better person versus like someone tearing you down or breaking you up? Like, what's your insights on that?
Oh yeah, no, I totally agree. Well, one thing, all right, you're gonna make me get into something deep here. One thing that I have seen over the years, I'm 35 now, going on 36, is the people who do not have, I will say there's bad information out there, and there are some people who are tearing you down. And that's been a part of my journey too, setting healthy boundaries with people and saying no and no. It's like my favorite word. Anyway, so that's a part of it. You do need to separate people who are harming you from people who are helping you. But guys, there's a really fine line. If it's all you hear from today, this could change your life. There is a fine line between just sticking around people who tell you that you're perfect already and tell you everything you want to hear, and somebody who's challenging you to be better. And I've seen that over the years. I cut somebody out of my life because, you know, they told me this, that, or the other. You know, maybe they should have been cut out of your life. But for example, when I was a little girl, my dad told me, and I literally think about this sometimes because it was true. And my dad loved me and he meant it well. He said, Jenna, your mouth is going to be the key to your freedom, or it is going to drag you down to the depths of hell. Because I always use words in like as a way to express myself. And sometimes when I was younger, I could get ugly and really lash out and say horrible, hateful things to people, which it's been years and years and years and years since I've done anything like that. I was a kid. Sometimes kids say that. But that stuck with me over the years. That if somebody has said that to me as an adult and truly they love me and they have proven to me that they love me, I need to listen to that feedback and I need to examine it. So a lot of times if somebody tells me something, I take a minute to examine it. I don't want to be the kind of person that if somebody gives me feedback that's hard to hear, okay, I don't want to be the kind of person that's like, no, I refuse to examine. I'll be like, okay, you called me rough around the edges. I am rough around the edges. Am I actually rough around the edges, or do you give people a perception that I'm rough around the edges? I'll examine it. I'll go back in my life. Has anyone else ever told me this before? I examine relationships, whatever it was. And I don't think I've ever had anyone say that to me, but whatever feedback that it is you're getting from someone else, I'd say examine it. Not to take it in and, you know, dwell on it, but examine it closely and see, because guys, any label that someone else is putting on you, even if it is just a perception and it's not actually who you are, you can control perception too. And guess what? The more you control perception, the more you have leverage to get your message out to the world and the masses and communicate better. That was a big lesson for me. So I do think that there are a lot of scammers out there and you have to beware. But follow people, research them, listen to what they say. If it resonates with you, I would look into talking to them further.
Thank you.
That answer is a long-winded answer.
I like the long-winded answers. That's okay. Because not everything is always simple. Sometimes we need long-winded answers and different stories. So I appreciate your stories. Can you tell us about, now I want to transition into how you got into, because like most of us, like this is the typical story, right? We wanted financial freedom. Like this is the typical story that I've heard. Financial freedom. How do you do financial freedom? Oh, real estate is like one of the best vehicles to do it, right? I want to get involved in real estate. I'll become a real estate investor. Oh, it wasn't as easy. So guess what? I'm going to become an agent and I can kind of do a mix between or something. I can leverage my mindset, skill set, and two set some way. So help us understand like how, like take us through your journey and like how you went from like, hey, I'm just a real estate investor or I'm just a real estate agent to owning an actual business, like the theme of today's podcast.
Okay. In my mind, if I had a diagram for this, I would like, the evolution of like primates how into a man, like
yes.
how
Yes.
and we can all see that. I think we've all grown up with that, like in school. I see real estate agents go through these phases. And the very issue of entering agents and investors, okay? The very entry into the industry, they're walking into a room. Okay, let's say that little man who's evolving, right, thinks he's walking into a room where he knows what's what. Most people have no idea that the room they're walking into is not the room they intended to walk into. They thought that they were going to, I don't know, Starbucks and they're in Dunkin' or whatever, vice versa. Okay. And the expectations like, wait a minute, what? This is not what I expected. This is not what I intended to walk into. That's something that everyone constantly has people come to them and say, I had a friend who owned like multiple Papa John's franchises. And he was like, I want to slow down. I'm thinking about retiring, getting into real estate instead. And I was like, don't do it. I mean, unless you're investing, right, in assets that create cash flow, don't, like, he wanted to become a real estate agent and start just like selling houses. And I was like, let me caution you, in the beginning, you trade time for money. Period. Okay. So we're all this little tiny person primate evolving into a big, awesome real estate agent or investor, right? Well, most of the time people are so confused and confounded and frustrated within their first 1 or 2 years. The stats for quitting in the first 1 or 2 years as an agent or an investor are astonishing. It's, I think, 75% in the first year and 83 or 87% by the second, because they walked into a room they didn't know they were walking into. Period. End of story. The expectations are off. There's a giant chasm between what people think they're getting into and what they're actually getting into. Any business takes work. I don't care what it is.
Right.
The thing about real estate that is unique is sometimes you're dealing with heightened emotions. So not only do you have to be good at regular sales, you're dealing with human beings that have serious problems with the biggest investment of their lives. If you don't think that you need to be good with people, you got to think again. The second thing is the sales cycle is so long. I mean, you could meet a buyer today that thinks they're ready, that really is 6, 12, 18, 3 years. I mean, I'm just getting a listing that I'm working on for 4 freaking years. And it ain't high end. Okay. But that's what it takes. And people don't realize that. So there's this expectation that you're going to come in, you're going to have great hair, great legs, great all this, and people are going to flock to you to sell their house. Well, that's not how it happens. And you have to know lead gen, you have to know marketing, you have to have systems, you have to have a market differentiator, you have to be consistent, you have to know conversion, so on and so forth, and the mindset. You have to have so much tenacity. And And I'm not trying to scare people. This is learnable. If me, from the middle of nowhere, East Texas, between two cow farms with ADHD and OCD and all the things, can learn to do this, anyone can. But you actually have to, it would probably be great for you to understand what you're walking into. And that is a business that will probably take you at least 2 years to get to where you feel like you've mastered level 1. Because there are levels. Now, some people can do it faster than others. And one thing that I will say is I know people who are doing a crazy amount of transactions and still don't own a business. They're just cool, not sleeping, and constantly working. And I guess we would just, as people, need to decide if that's the kind of life we want or not. And I see them apply the wrong solutions a lot of times.
So one of the things that you do if you become that reluctant coach and you've created a product, Real Estate Agent Flex. Can you tell us about that, please, how it works? And, then eventually I want you to tell us one of your favorite stories around that.
Oh, yeah. Okay. So these hundreds of coachings that I've done, I basically noticed a pattern straight out the gate. Mm-hmm. And I don't know if anyone's familiar with the cash flow quadrant, but it actually went in tandem with the different levels of business ownership, exit strategy, being an employee, self-employed, business owner versus, an investor. And the issue is that level 1 of being in real estate, whether you're an investor, a wholesaler, or an agent, is mastery of actually owning the job. That's level number 1. And then the level 1.5 is beginning to start to own business. Okay. But essentially from these hundreds of coachings, patterns emerged. And there were these 5 things over and over and over again. And I'm telling you, I coach people doing over 160 deals a year. And I coach people who hadn't even closed one yet. And all of them had at least 2 of these air quote problems. They're not problems. They're really just gaps. I mean, it's not even a problem. It's nothing to be ashamed of. We all try to figure this stuff out. And here it is. I call it basically the 5 flex, right? Leads. If you don't have leads, you've got nothing. That's the lowest hanging fruit. We kind of all know that. What a lot of agents are missing is value add. How are you different than other agents? If you think that your value is the air quote knowledge that you got from real estate school and you can open doors, we've got problems. I love you, but you got to find someone to help you discover why you're different than the other agent. Okay. Not just even the other agent, you got to develop your skills because people have information now that they didn't have back in the 1980s. We cannot just be door openers. That's why the industry has a bad rep. I mean, it's just plain and simple. Value add. How are you different? That's number 2. Systems. This is the big one because the systems are your first, this is your stairway to level 2, baby. If you're mastering level 1, your staircase is systems, and it provides you so much leverage. The agents that I coached that were crazy top producers, okay, didn't have hardly any systems. And if they did, their hands were so dadgum in them, micromanaging, that I was like, no wonder you're suffering. No wonder you want to quit, boo. It's because you gotta learn to develop yourself to develop other people and technology. And if it's not something that you can do, you need to hire it out. That's part of what my company does. We actually build out systems, and it's not our CRM. We actually do that in the agent CRM for them. Anyway, I'm getting sidetracked. Systems are critical. CRM technology. All right. The other one is conversion. So you can have, this one is basically the linchpin of everything. If you can have leads, systems, and a value add, if you cannot convert your clients, okay, nothing else matters. Nothing else matters. Because if you cannot convert them to, number one, liking, knowing, and trusting you, and then if you want to be a leader of the situation and have authority and be an expert, then you got to learn to have that value add in place. So you're not just likable. Because I like my Starbucks lady, but I don't want her to sell my house. I like my mailman too. We give him presents, but I don't want him to sell my house. Like, that's so many times where agents stop on the conversion wagon or the value add wagon. There's like, I want to be likable and I want them to trust me. That's great. I've worked with agents in the business for 30 years. Their clients are pissed off within a week because they didn't position themselves as an expert. And I'm like, oh, we can do this. We can do this, guys and gals. All you have to know is a little trick to a system. It's not a trick. It's ethical. Okay. To position yourself as an expert is everything to be able to convert. Okay. So leads, systems, value add, conversion matters, kind of goes hand in hand. It helps you to have a value add to convert. And last but not least is consistency. Everybody's hardest thing is consistency. And I get it. Life happens. And I feel like when I've met with agents sometimes in the past, they will be like, my family member just doesn't understand. Like, I run a business here, but now that I have some air quote free time, I'm all of a sudden doing all these extra things for the household. And this is with men and women. Like, I coach men and I'm taking grandma to the doctor, and all my siblings have 9-to-5 jobs, just like, let me do it now. And I'm like, that's called boundary setting. That's a different coaching topic, but we'll get there. But you have to be consistent. Whether you are consistent 12 hours a day, like I was, and I was trying to figure all this out, or 16 hours a day, like I was sometimes, or 4, you protect it and you be consistent. And the more that you increase your leads and your ability to convert and your ability to communicate a market differentiator and leverage systems, the more your consistency pays off. And that's how you become a top producer. Does that make sense?
It does make sense. All right. Tell us where we can learn more about Real Agent Flex.
Yes. So it's a brand new thing. Like I said, I was a bit of a reluctant coach, and I thought about launching it last year, but I really wanted to ask agents what they needed, and did a lot of market research. So you can connect with me personally at Jenna Harris-Hernandez on Facebook, or just look for the Real Agent Flex on Facebook. And ultimately, that Real Flex is getting your life back. And that's what we're all about. Like, yes, transforming your business will transform your life. And I have lived through that, and that's literally like the culmination of my story. And ultimately, I didn't have a choice. And you have a choice to decide to work smarter over harder. And it's really just a few tweaks, some focus, some framework, and implementation in your mind that will help you get there. But yeah, you can connect with me there. And I'd love for y'all to come on that Facebook page. We're going to do a lot of lives. We're going to do a challenge soon. And just get to know us and get some free value. And I'd be honored.
Thank you. So this is like a selfish question I like to ask for myself.
Oh, yeah. No,
but I also like to ask for the audience, right? Because sometimes people want free information or pick your brain and they do nothing with it. And it's like, well, think about how you can serve someone else. So how can someone add immediate or direct value to you or your business?
Gosh, that's a great question. I don't know that I've ever been asked that question, but really I would love to engage with more people. I'd love to engage with more people. I'd love to get this message out there because, and this would be the thing that I leave you with, and it is dark and it is serious, but if you ever want to hear more of my story, you can come on to that page and find me. But learning how to change my mindset through the tactics that we teach in that program, and learning how to change my business according to this framework saved my life. I was so burnt out and so exhausted from the overwhelm of success and being owned by my business that I had considered taking my own life for 2 or 3 years. And I'm not that type. Like I was never that type in the past. Yeah, I had some anxiety and depression, but it was very normal levels. And when I knew that I had to get this message out for men in the Dallas-Fort Worth area that were even far and above, some of them far and above more successful than I was, took their own lives in the real estate industry. And I was like, I had a message that could have helped them. And it just, it like killed me. And I was like, I have to get this message out there because it can totally change your business, and it can also change your mind, and therefore it will change your life. And so I would love to just have any opportunity that I can to share this with people.
Thank you for sharing that. And so I normally ask that question because I think about how I can add immediate value, as well as like anybody that gets in touch with, watches the video or the podcast, how they can add value. So my offer is, I see you recommended Jeremy. Is that your husband?
Yes.
Okay, yes. So you recommended Jeremy. I would love to have him on to talk about like how to make video content more engaging. But one of the things that I can do, I know this is like, we're not jumping around or anything like that on our video, but one of the things I can offer to you is I can send you the raw recording of the podcast. And, you know, you and Jeremy, you can do like whatever you want with it to get the message out, take clips and do what you need to do with that. So
that would be awesome.
Yeah, just email me to remind me. I'll send you over the raw stuff. I can probably send it over as early as today, and we'll get it sent out to you. Okay.
I would love that. I would appreciate that so much.
Yeah, absolutely. So, if you could give, what's one piece of advice you would give someone just starting out in the field?
Become self-aware. Mm-hmm. And define what success means to you.
Okay.
Not what it means to everybody else, not what it looks like on everybody else, not the highlight reels. Because if you don't know what you want and where you're going, you're never going to get there.
Thank you. Thank you. And success to me is like spending time with my family, spending time with my kids, working remotely. That's success to me. And some people are like, Jerome, you don't go out and do all this stuff, because I have my own definition of success, and that's what it is, right? So I appreciate you sharing that. What are 3 books you recommend to the audience and why?
Oh, I love books. Okay. I love Extreme Ownership.
Okay.
It's amazing. It's written by 2 Navy SEALs. That really changed my life. This is kind of a spiritual one, and it is written for women, but I love The Best Yes. That really helped me start letting go of opportunities that did not align with my life goals. And there's so many. Oh my gosh. I love Believe It by Jamie Kern-Lima.
And why?
Really just the power of not stopping.
Okay.
And overcoming.
Got some more? You want to give us some more?
Oh gosh, I have such a huge long list. I wouldn't know where to start, but I think I do love the 1% rule. I believe what it's called. I love that. Anything by Russell Brunson, love it. Anything by Myron Golden, obsessed. He is I found him like 3 months ago. I have binge watched everything, and I'm obsessed beyond belief. So, thank
you. I just discovered Myron Golden, and I haven't gone that far yet, but I just discovered him. So yeah, I like his stuff so far.
Yeah, it's gonna change your life. You gotta get his book. I'm halfway through it, and I've dog-eared like almost every page. It's worth 100. Not even kidding.
All right. Where can listeners find out more about you online?
So right now, I'm not famous, just coming out in the gate, really sharing this model with everybody. So really that Facebook is the first place to go because we are building
Okay.
the website, we're building all the things. But that Facebook page would be where to go for the time being. And we'll probably have more announcements as it rolls out. And we are starting a YouTube channel, but really just kind of rebranded some old content. Not old, it's stuff that I do every week. For that YouTube channel, but it's not rebranded yet. So
Okay.
we'll be able to find us on YouTube soon.
I sent you they wouldn't let me add you on Facebook, but I sent you a message and hopefully you can respond and then I can add you. They said, you don't know that person, so you can't add them. So
That's so
whatever.
weird. Okay, well,
What's one question you wish I had asked you and how would you have answered?
oh gosh, I love organic flow. So I didn't really have anything that I wish you had asked me necessarily.
Okay.
I kind of like the flow of things.
Okay.
I can't think of anything. I'll probably think of something later, but I don't want to like make everybody sit here while I think about it because I don't know.
Okay. No problem. If you could close us down with one word, no explanation, what word would that be?
Freedom.
Freedom. All right. Jenna, this has been excellent. I appreciate you. Thank you so much for your patience as well as sharing your message with us. I'm going to close us down. I want to chat with you for about 3 to 5 minutes and then, so thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you. I appreciate it so much.
Absolutely. All right.